Welcome to Nonprofit Profiles. I'm Genevieve Riatort. On today's show, we're going to hear about an organization that is helping to end homelessness one family at a time.
When you think of homelessness, a family with children is probably not what comes to mind. But in Los Angeles alone, there are nearly 9,500 families struggling to exit homelessness and get back on their feet. Imagine that LA is a place where these parents and children can thrive. Now imagine that there's an organization that's making that happen. Imagine LA. Even if families find housing, what happens next? Loss of a job or another setback makes it easy for them to become homeless again. So how can we break this cycle? Imagine LA provides a way out. Our mission is to empower families to transition from homelessness to self-sufficiency. How do we do it? One family at a time. In our 2-year mentorship program, every Imagine LA family is matched with a caring volunteer team drawn from a faith-based organization within their community.
Government can do so much, and the marketplace can do so much, but the faith-based communities are just wired for caring for people.
One-to-one mentors are matched to each family member, including a budgeting mentor for the head of the household, and others to come alongside and support the family's unique needs and goals. Together, they work toward maintaining housing, attaining self-sufficiency, and ensuring that every member of the family thrives.
For a while, I was in the streets, and I didn't, know if I didn't pay bills, I did nothing, and they just reiterated that back into my life, being a positive role model in society today.
And when a little extra help is needed, Imagine LA assists families in finding private sector resources and advocates, whatever it takes to get them what they need and help them permanently exit homelessness.
We're going to hear first from Jill Bauman, President and CEO of Imagine LA. Jill, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for having us, Genevieve.
Well, Imagine LA sounds like an amazing organization. Can you tell us about the history and mission of Imagine LA?
Absolutely. When the initial vision came from Reverend Mark Brewer, who thought there's over 8,000 homeless families in Los Angeles, and there's over 8,000 faith communities of any kind. And he said, couldn't we take 8 plus 8 and make 0? And so we started looking at how can a faith community and the volunteers there be brought together with a homeless family and really end that cycle of homelessness in that family. And that was the beginning of the process. We started identifying that families, once they actually got into housing, there was this huge gap. They had all these services and there was this gap. They get into housing and then, oh my God, and they panicked. And it was a perfect time to bring volunteers, trained volunteers, mentors alongside them and help them journey back into getting onto job tracks, getting the kids on track in school, to helping that family flourish long term. And so that gap is what we're really looking at in homelessness. And the other gap is that faith communities, and now we're working with some companies, but people want to be part of a long-term solution, not just a Band-Aid. Right. And this is really an opportunity for them to be involved in a long-term, in a relationship, and to watch this family grow and flourish. So
how long has Imagine LA been in operation?
We were formed as an idea in 2006. We actually started with our first family and our first faith community in the end of 2007. Now we have over 50 matches with pretty much every denomination you can think of: church, synagogues, mosque, so we're at about the 50 mark now.
So that's 50 families that you've helped?
Yes, and then also we're starting our first family with a corporation where they're putting together a team, and we're working with Tom's here locally, and we're really excited about that because there's lots of families out there that need this, and the more teams and people we can get involved, the better.
Wow. So tell me a little bit about the longevity of the program. I know that you mentioned this isn't just a Band-Aid, this is a long-term fix, so families are matched with mentors Can you speak a little bit to how that works?
Yeah. First of all, you go to, it's a team. Think about a team of people. And for us, that team of people is coming from a faith community. And that team of people is a whole bunch of things, and they're going to come and walk alongside a family. They're going to be a mentor. There's going to be one-on-one mentors for each member of the family over 6. There's going to be a budgeting mentor. There's going to be tutors that come alongside, either an adult for computer training or helping them get through a continuing ed class. There's reading, all sorts of things. We even have a lot of special advocates to help special needs kids get what they need in school, which has really been helping. So this team of people, these mentors for each person, tutors, people to come alongside them and walk next to them, is what this team of volunteers does. And then what Imagine LA does is we have these fantastic people called family team managers. And they have case management experience with this population, and they also have volunteer management experience. So they're managing this team and case managing this family on this
both
journey.
sides.
Yeah, so, and they literally, every week, a phone call, a conference call, they're being guided, and some amazing things happen along the way. We call it the journey.
The journey. So what's the beginning of a journey and what's an end of a journey? So the families come to you while they're still homeless or living in a shelter?
They've been in what's called a long-term shelter or transitional housing for families.
So a place like Step Up on Second.
Well,
I'm sorry, Upward Bound House.
Yeah, Step Up is actually not for families.
Not for families,
but Upward Bound House is in fact one of our strongest and longest partners. We love them, and we've got, I think, 8 or 10 families from them. So that family is coming into housing. They've,
permanent housing.
Into permanent housing. I don't know how permanent any permanent housing is. I always like that word.
Right.
But anyway, they're coming into housing. They're most likely coming into a community they may have never lived in. They most likely don't have any family. They're most likely a single parent. They may have had challenges like addiction that they're really in recovery on. They may have had some domestic violence, and they're scared. The parents are like, we never want to be homeless again. We want the best for our kids. And so we come alongside and start walking next to them as they come into this next phase of their life and help them stabilize. And we have parents that are literally barely working part-time that end up, on a career track by the end. We have kids that are struggling terribly in school that by the end are loving school and getting awards. We have whole families that have lost tens of 20 pounds of, they've gotten into nutrition and family meal planning and health care and all of that stuff. So they're big strides. They happen this much at a time.
Sure.
So.
But it's so wonderful that you have a whole team that is coordinating and working together to support the family in the many different aspects of their lives so that they can stay housed and continue to progress on their journey. I just think it's really wonderful what you're doing. And
oh, thanks. Well, we love it. Everybody are told, it's a huge family. All these volunteers, all our staff, all our families, everybody feels like one great big family. And it is about building relationships across places we never would have thought would happen.
And about how many staff members do you have and how many volunteers?
Well, I think full-time staff, we have 7. Then we have a lot of helpers, and then and part-time, and then we have, I think, close to 300 volunteers, because each team has anywhere from 5 to 20 families, people on their team. So, and then we have we've got sort of junior, we call it like an Imagine LA junior board, and we have our board advisors, all those people. It's probably, around 500 people involved.
Wow.
So it's fun.
That is an amazing team. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing the beautiful vision of Imagine LA. I'm really looking forward to hearing more about it.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. And thank you for being with us on Nonprofit Profiles. We'll get to hear from some of those mentors and volunteers in our next segment. Welcome back. We're going to see another short clip about more of the wonderful work that Imagine LA is doing.
With Imagine LA, it's more like they help you achieve your goals. The Imagine LA really helped me believe in myself.
And here's the best part. It's working. Families in our 2-year program have stayed together and maintained housing. Parents have developed careers and kids are graduating and going to college.
We came with nothing, and now we're all together. I have my whole family with me. My kids in school, everybody got their heads up. We owe a lot to Imagine LA.
So many more homeless families need our help. We invite individuals, faith communities, social and community services, and corporations to join us.
Probably the greatest joy that I've experienced in all of this is that I have benefited more from this experience than I think the person I've been mentoring.
Please consider contributing your time, resources, and connections. Imagine LA can't do it without you.
This can be done in any city in this country, any place in the world where there are people who are committed to making a difference and working together to end homelessness in the places that they live.
Imagine that LA is a city where families can support themselves and thrive long term.
I'm in a healthy state, being able to provide for myself and my kids, and Imagine LA was a big part of it. I'm thankful and grateful, and I'm sure I'm gonna be okay.
Imagine that LA is a city that comes together to make this happen.
Sometimes in life, you find something you can actually fix. This is one of those things. You could solve homelessness for families, one family at a time. You could do it right now.
Imagine LA. Find out how you can get involved.
Here to tell us about how this program works are Rebecca Amato Sprigg and Rabbi Shapiro. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So Rebecca, we'll start with you. Can you tell us a little bit more about how the program works, how families come to you, how you determine that they're a good fit for your program?
Sure. We work with several different nonprofit agencies, mostly transitional shelters in the Los Angeles area. Our biggest one is Upward Bound House, which Jill spoke about earlier, as well as Miriam's House. And we go out there, we train the case managers to really identify families that are seeking the mentorship once they get into permanent housing. Mm-hmm. Of course, we have eligibility requirements that we ask that they meet. But once that we determine that they're eligible for our program, we go out there, we interview them, we find a match for them. We try to match as close as we can to the congregation so that it's convenient for the volunteers and the family to meet each other. Mm-hmm. Once we do that, we screen the families and we screen the volunteers, we do a match. And it's a gathering, a really social, nice gathering where the volunteers get to meet the family for the first time.
And so Jill was saying that each family member gets their own mentor. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Anyone over the age of 6 can get a mentor. They're one-to-one mentors, so it's much like a big brother, big sister program, where they have their own personal mentor that they hopefully have something in common with. We try to match as closely as we can to hobbies. So if a child's interested in art or, wants to learn how to draw or loves to draw, we try to find someone that really can cultivate that and really help them find a future in that field, hopefully.
Wow, that's really exciting. And then, of course, you work with partner faith organizations and now some businesses to find volunteers. And that's, of course, where Rabbi Shapiro comes in. Can you tell us a little bit about Wilshire Temple's involvement with the Imagine LA program?
Sure. So at Wilshire Boulevard Temple, we had engaged in a process of community organizing several years ago. And issues of housing and homelessness rose to the surface as the things that really troubled members of our congregation the most. But we struggled to find an appropriate and meaningful way to address those issues. Right? The issue of homelessness, especially in a city like Los Angeles with so many homeless, is a really overwhelming problem.
It seems so huge.
Exactly. What can one person do? What can 5 people do? And sort of serendipitously at the same time, I learned about Imagine LA. And took it to our lay leadership that was really involved with this, and it appealed to them as a tangible and concrete way to make a real difference in the battle against homelessness in Los Angeles.
And how has your involvement and your congregation's involvement affected the congregation as a whole and the way that people feel about the difference that they're making?
You know, it's a really interesting. It's been a really interesting thing to see because I think first and foremost, it's put a face on a problem that we all know is there. But for so many of us, I think, you know, we think of homelessness, we think of you know, someone sitting on the street, we think of a panhandler, we think of sort of the stereotypical profile or image of a homeless person or a homeless family. I know that for myself and for the members of our congregation, meeting our family completely changed that for us. You know, they don't look homeless, whatever that means.
Right.
Right? They look like, you know, someone we might run into in the grocery store or at the bank or at Starbucks.
Someone you go to school with for
Exactly.
the kids.
And so I think for so many of us, it made us realize, you know, how lucky we are. And, you know, that for many of us, especially our family's very young, at a young age, you know, one paycheck or two paychecks, or you don't have a family to help you with first or last month's rent to get into your first apartment, you know, you're living in your car too, or you're living on your friend's couch also. So I think for us, it's really humanized the issue of homelessness and really changed the face of homelessness for us.
Wow. It's so wonderful that you've gotten involved in this way. And Rebecca, can you tell us a little bit about how the families have succeeded and what they've been able to achieve through working with your program?
Sure, I can give you a success story
Great.
of Maria and her son Danny. They're graduates of the Imagine LA program. They came to us scared, finished their transitional program. She was a survivor of domestic violence. She didn't have a full-time job. She was in debt, didn't have transportation. We were able to pair them with, or match them with Leo Beck Temple. And they really did a great job. She got to be debt-free. They really helped her master her budget. She got a full-time job.
Well, I think I need a mentor.
I know, right? Me too. She was able to save money to buy a car, get her driver's license. She's working full-time. She was also, recently when she came into the program, she had gotten clean and sober, so she's maintained her sobriety. And she's great. Danny, her son's doing wonderful. He was, not doing so well in school. He gets citizenship awards. He just participated in a talent show, which is big because he's a little on the shy side. So she was really excited about that. So they've been doing really great, and
it must be so exciting to see a family turn around that way.
Very exciting. So proud of her. And we even have her come speak to our families that who will want to join our program.
It's got to be a little challenging for some families. I mean, you really have to be willing to share a lot of your life and to be willing to share your sort of not so pretty sides as well.
Very true. That's why we ask Maria to come, and Rico, who you'll hear from, come and really talk to the families, because we ask them to be honest. Tell them your fears. What was your fear coming into the program? Because we know it's all these strangers coming in, but once you meet the volunteers and you see where they're coming from and how big their heart is, and they just really want to do anything to help you and help you achieve the goals that you set, it's a good feeling for everybody involved.
And is it a 2-year relationship?
It's a 2-year relationship, but we always encourage them to go beyond that, which, for example, Maria still sees her mentors, so they still have a relationship.
Wow. Well, you are really doing amazing and commendable work.
Thank you.
I wish that there were more Imagine LA programs to help even more families, not just here in Santa Monica and across LA, but throughout the country. This is really an amazing program. So thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And please stay with us, because in our next segment, we're going to hear from some of the mentors of the Imagine LA program and from someone who was a mentee. Thank you, and stay with us. Welcome back to Nonprofit Profiles. I'm here with Rico Varnado, who is a graduate of Imagine LA, and Ken Braskamp, who is a mentor. Rico, I'll start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey, how you first came to be in a position of homelessness and how you found Imagine LA?
Okay. Well, it started several years ago. My son and I, we became homeless. My landlord, she came down with an illness, and the house that we call home was no longer available because of her illness, and that put us in a homeless situation. my kids and I, we slept in my car. We stayed with friends, hotels, and to the point I was like tired of it. You know, I felt like we didn't deserve it, and that's when I went out and seek for help, and I got us into a shelter, a transitional shelter. And from there, the shelter gave us support, security, which I needed, so I could try to get my life back on track.
Wow. So how long were you homeless before you found a shelter situation?
I was homeless close to 2 months.
Wow, that's
2 months
terrifying
with kids.
with young children.
Yes, it was, yeah, it was devastating.
And what's your experience with Imagine LA been like?
I had a great experience as I stayed in the shelter for 15 months. And when I exit out into my own home, I realized that I still needed support. And from there, my shelter, it referred me to Imagine LA. And my experience with them, I remember when I first met Imagine LA, they was very welcoming. I remember them entertaining my kids while they was introducing me to the program, which was really nice.
Yeah, that helps.
Yeah. And from there, what I really like, I was part of the process of choosing my voluntary team. So the beginning was really nice, and once I received my voluntary team, you know, I kind of met them, and I was like, they was all young, and I was like, wow, how are they gonna help me? I have more life experience, but I was open-minded, and it was, you know, it was a large group, and then the commitment was 2 years.
Wow.
It was a 2-year commitment, so you know, I had all kind of thoughts in the back of my head, but I was open-minded. Met with them. The group was fabulous. They was very friendly, open-minded. You know.
What kind of support did they provide?
The support they provided, first of all, a budget team was provided for me, which I really didn't care for budgeting or like budgeting at all.
But it's important to learn.
It's important to learn. And after 2 years, I could say it was successful. 'Cause
you're an expert.
I'm an expert. So they provided budgeting, and also they provided tutoring for my boys, my 2 sons.
Wow.
My sons were struggling in school. It was hard for me to, you know, help them out due to still my lifestyle, and they provided tutoring.
And so what do you see in the future for yourself and your family?
Well, I see a bright future. You know, when I started with Imagine LA, I was a part-time fitness trainer and voluntary work with LA County. Now I'm full-time with LA County as a parent advocate. And from there, I mean, it's been growing. You know, I'm enjoying providing for my kids. I'm still learning and growing. You know, my budget team, not my budget team, but my mentor team is now, the relationship we have is a friendship.
That's
so,
great.
It's a bright future.
Well, congratulations on your journey. It's really wonderful
Thank
to
you.
hear your story.
Thank you.
So, Ken, it must be nice for you to hear stories like Rico's.
Yes, it is, definitely.
Can you
is.
tell us what your experience as a mentor has been like?
Well, initially when I started with Imagine LA, was on the board, and I realized that I needed to know more than what we were just doing. So I became a mentor to a young man who was in high school. He was a junior in high school, and now he's a junior at Sacramento State University, and we're still in contact with each other. I just talked to him this last week. It's been an unbelievable experience for me because I was learning a lot about life because I was mentoring a 16-year-old, and I'm almost 70. So it's quite an age difference, but he was African American, so but it really helped out because I learned a lot about who he was and what his culture was like and how it helped me to grow. And like I say to a lot of people, is I'd probably learn more from this experience than from him and that experience than he's learned from me and the contact we've had over these last number of years.
Well, nonetheless, I would have to imagine that he's gotten quite a bit out of the relationship as well. Can you talk a little bit about how you watched your mentor change and grow?
Yes.
Or your mentee?
My mentee, right. He was a very shy but young man, but he was a very nice gentleman. I mean, he was very well trained as far as how to socially be complimentary to people. But what he needed is just some encouragement, because I think what he didn't have in the past was someone to really take an interest in him And so I would go to his football games, and I'd be there, and I'd pick him up afterwards and take him home. So we had time to have a dinner or a meal after the game, and then I went to movies with him. So he learned, I think, somewhat how to become a better young man and how to have confidence in himself. I think that's what he really lacked initially. And then we helped him get a job with Guess Clothing. And the first year was kind of a little disaster, but since then he's been extremely well received, and he loves it. And he's really grown in his character and his outlook on life. I mean, he just believes that there's nothing that can stop him from accomplishing what he has dreamed about.
That's amazing. It's so wonderful how that long-term relationship and really being a consistent person in someone's life can really make a huge difference. Can you tell us how other people can get involved if someone out there is seeing this program and they say, hey, you know what, I want to do that, I want to be a mentor?
Well, probably the easiest way is to go to our website, Imagine LA, I think it's imaginela.com. And you can
imaginela.org.
.org, I'm sorry, you're right. And then to read from there. But if you belong to a faith-based organization, try to get the organization to look into this program, or if you're with a company, the same way. We also are looking for, if you have internships available as a person or an institution, we would love to have you offer them to us, because we have young men and women that I think can use that experience. And
wow. It makes me think of it takes a village. Because we may not all come from families that have the support systems built in, or maybe our families live far away. So what you are providing in Imagine LA is a network and a support system and a village. And it sounds like you're inviting others to join that village, whether it's faith organizations or businesses or individuals. Everyone can be part of the solution. And it's just such a pleasure to speak with you both. I really appreciate, Rico, your willingness to share your personal story. I know it can't always be easy. I've had the experience myself as a young child of being evicted and coming home to see my sofa on the street and how embarrassing that was. So I know it can be really challenging sometimes to share those stories, and I just want to thank you for your courage and your advocacy, and it's just wonderful to have you. And Ken, thank you so much for being here as well, and for the work that you do in the community. It really is wonderful.
Thank you.
And thank you for being with us on Nonprofit Profiles. Imagine LA is a wonderful organization, and I hope you'll choose to support them. imaginela.org. Thanks, and see you next time.